The people of Grindel Hollow said that Elias Werner was born with gears instead of bones, and mainsprings instead of veins. From the alcove above his workshop window, the tink-tink-tink of his jeweler's hammer floated day and night, supported by the warm, resinous smell of varnish and the cool, metallic scent of filings. He had fashioned carriage chronometers that never lost a second on a fortnight's journey, tower bells that rang with the fidelity of a cathedral, music boxes that whispered lullabies more tenderly than a mother's lips. No one, however, suspected the breadth of his ambition until the evening the undertaker left Werner's shop, pale and shaking, carrying a small black walnut box clasped to his chest like an infant. 2 nights later, curiosity overwhelmed grief, and the undertaker's daughter came to Elias. Nora Bell had buried her mother that morning. Her eyes were swollen in crescents. She cradled the incurious mass of the box's weight and asked Werner whether the device was truly meant for consolation. Consolation? The clockmaker's tools gleamed around him like artificial consolations. No, Miss Bell, not consolation. Preparation. He unlatched the box. Inside lay a wooden pocket watch about the size of a child's apple. Its face bore no hours, only a single hand that traveled around a scale of unfathomable numbers, marking seconds that did not match the wall clock's cadence. A faint violet luminescence webbed under the crystal. "It's lovely," Nora said, though the word tasted inappropriate. "But how does it help?" "It does not help," Elias corrected, voice gentle. "It tells." "Tells what?" "The moment. Your moment. The last one you will ever know. The instant your pulse shudders out." She recoiled. "You've made a death clock?" He nodded once. "I call it a moment sphere. When it is attuned, the hand spins until it finds the resonance of its bearer's final breath. Then it begins to count down." Nora wanted to fling the thing from his bench, yet fascination rooted her. Resonance isn't a mechanical measurement, nor is time, strictly speaking. That is only how we clutch at its coattails. He shut the lid. "I should not have lent it to your father so soon after bereavement. But undertakers live daily with finitude, and I thought he might appreciate the craftsmanship." Nora studied the dark veins in the walnut case. "Has he looked?" "I don't believe he has the courage, and I will not coax it out of him. Returning it when he's ready will suffice." She departed, hugging the folds of her shawl, and resolved to keep clear of the workshop. Yet the whisper of the device followed her like a thought half-dreamed. 3 nights later she returned alone, the bell over the door chiming midnight. "I must know," she said. Elias raised an eyebrow, but produced the clock. He pried open the back, revealing 2 brass keyholes. From a velvet pouch he withdrew an ornate key of antimony, black as old blood. "Lancer." "Who winds the train?" he explained. "The other binds it to your pulse. When the attunement is complete, the face crystallizes with your own reflection. Then the hand begins its run." Nora hesitated. "And I will see my end?" "You will see the time until your end. A number, nothing more." "Is it changeable?" Werner's shoulders seemed to droop beneath invisible centuries. He lifted a silver key this time, a twin, save that its teeth pointed opposite the first. "Only by turning it back," he murmured. "But that comes at a price steeper than death." She thought he was warning her against theatrics. She did not understand that he was pleading for her soul. Nevertheless, she inserted the black key, wound 1 revolution, and the device hummed like a honeybee trapped in a bottle. The violet glow deepened. The crystal's interior clouded until she glimpsed her silhouette etched upon its face. The hand spun frantically, slowed, ticked past figures so vast she couldn't read them, and settled. 342 million seconds. Roughly 10 years and 10 months. Nora exhaled. A relief. Ignorantly sweet, cooled her spine. 10 more years. Enough to mend her father's spirit, to fall in love, to bear a child perhaps. She closed the lid with reverence. "I thank you," she said, "if only for the wonder." Elias watched her retreat as though she carried a keg of blasting powder. That winter, rumors about the moment sphere seeped through Grindle Hollow in trickles. A banker reportedly knew the exact evening his heart would seize. A seamstress learned she would outlive her husband by 6 days, and spent those days sewing black ribbon onto her Sunday dresses. People visited Elias under darkness, trading coin or heirlooms for the watch's counsel. He accepted only what held meaning: an unlabeled violin, a soldier's medals, pressed roses that had kept their scent through 2 wars. He asked each customer the same covenant: do not, under any torment, wind back the hand. Most nodded, grateful simply for knowledge. A few, intoxicated by forewarning, demanded more. If disaster could be evaded, why not simply spin the seconds away? Elias refused them, yet desire, once birthed, hunts relentlessly. Late in February, Sheriff Clegg pounded Elias' door bearing a revolver and the stink of gin. The sheriff's moment sphere predicted he had 2 hours left. He'd wound it that afternoon. Sweat slicked his mustache. "Fix it," he growled. "Your cursed gadget says I'm headed to the grave before dawn." "It cannot be fixed," Elias said quietly. "It can only be fulfilled. You think I'll accept that?" Clegg fumbled for the silver key that Elias had only shown, but never given. Yet Clegg had spied its resting place, and whiskey lent him daring. He slammed Werner against the tool wall, snatched the key from its hook, and drove it into the second keyhole. Elias grappled his wrist. "You don't know!" The sheriff twisted backward. The watch shrieked. A metallic rasp like talons on slate. The hand fluttered counterclockwise, reversing minutes, hours. A rime of hoarfrost swept across the bench, crawling nails of ice up Elias' arms. Clegg's pupils widened, his stubble regressed, fading to smoother flesh. Bruises on his knuckles dwindled, like spilled ink reabsorbed into parchment. He began to laugh until the breath refused exit. His lips parted, eyes round with certainty of triumph. But he made no sound. His teeth rattled, fell like chips of porcelain. Blood glazed them black as they struck the floor. 1 heartbeat later he collapsed. Still, the moment sphere ticking forward again of its own accord, having secured a new calibration, 0. Elias bent over the corpse. Every tick felt like a hammer driving nails into his chest. Slowly, he pocketed the silver key. At dawn, 2 constables found the sheriff's body outside, slumped against the well. The coroner cited massive internal rupture. No one questioned Elias Clegg had been drunk and violent before. Yet the townsfolk whispered, "The sheriff died the same hour he foretold, did he not?" Some swore he had visited the clockmaker's shop first. The hush thickened into dread. Nora Bell returned after the funeral. "Mr. Werner, what truly happened?" He pressed tea into her trembling hands. "I refused him the chance to change what cannot be changed. He took that chance himself. Reversal bears a cost equal to life, but not paid by the turner alone." Nora frowned. "The sheriff died. What else was spent?" "You saw his teeth." Elias shivered, though the hearth blazed. What you did not see was his mother, a widow in Whitechapel, who forgot his name that very hour. Or the prisoner he pardoned last spring, found hanging in a gallows cell moments after. When the moment sphere's chain is forced in retreat, the world contorts to reweave the tapestry unpicked. Threads must be cut elsewhere. "Prove it," Nora whispered. "I will not," Elias said. A demonstration would create another wound. Nora crossed her arms. "Then destroy it. Melt the gears, shatter the crystal." "It cannot be destroyed by mortal means." His eyes flared with something like awe. "I did not craft its principle, only its vessel." Days passed, then weeks, and winter bled into a raw, wet spring. Grindle Hollow's mood soured. Some folks returned their moment spheres, fearful of them. Some begged Elias to take them back. He did, stacking the walnut boxes in a cellar cabinet, whose lock he sealed with lead. Still he tinkered above, forging a second device, one that might, he prayed, undo the damage entirely. But every prototype seized or fell silent, as though the original mechanism jealously guarded its supremacy. One April morning, Nora's father collapsed beside an empty grave. Sudden stroke. When Nora pried open his waistcoat pocket to retrieve his handkerchief, she found no handkerchief, only the moment sphere. She snapped the lid open, 400 seconds remaining. She screamed for help while fumbling for the black key to wind it, futilely willing those seconds to slow. They did not. Her father's final breath aligned precisely with the watch's last tick. Grief fermented into fury. That night she stole the cellar key Werner kept on a shelf of horology tomes. By moonlight, she opened the cabinet. Dozens of moment spheres glimmered like captive fireflies, each bearing labels. Mrs. Alden, Dr. Crisp, twins of Mill Farm. She closed the door, retreated upstairs, and found Elias asleep on his cot. The silver reversal key hung from a chain around his neck. Nora severed the chain with snips used for trimming hairsprings. Elias stirred, sighing, but rolled away. In the workshop, she laid her father's clock on the bench and inserted the silver key. No, she thought, not only my father. If winding backward claims others, then winding far enough might reclaim my mother too, might restore Sheriff Clegg, and any ripple my decision erased. The innocent would be revived when the cause of their demise never occurred. She gripped the key. One backward turn. The hands on every unattached watch within the room spun likewise, gears whirred in wooden boxes, as though the entire colony of death timepieces inhaled. Outside, roosters crowed prematurely. Saplings shrank by inches. Petals folded into buds. Dawn retreated behind the horizon, nor exulted. The change felt potent as thunder laced through her marrow. She twisted the key further. Something struck the roof like hail or bones. She froze, listening. Through the north window, church spires inverted their clock faces, numbers bleeding upward into the sky. She saw stars that should have set, whirling backwards across the firmament like fish torn against a net. But she also felt the cost. Her fingertips numbed, her heartbeat slowed to syrup. She glimpsed her reflection in a brass tray, hair paling to the color of her grandmother's. She was paying the toll personally this time. Yet she persisted. 2 more turns would rewind 24 hours. Then her father would stand at breakfast, complaining about weak tea. No stroke, no grave. She completed the second turn. Pain, white and immediate, tore through her skull. The workshop windows spider-webbed and blew inward, glass swirling without sound. Shadows billowed across walls, shapes of every person whose timeline she severed by reversal. They glided toward her, silent as frost. She wrenched at the key, but her muscles listened to other chronologies. Her body convulsed, aging and youthing in pulses like candle flame in wind. An iron hand clasped hers. Elias, awake now, face lined with an anguish deeper than censure. He cried something she could not parse through the roar of backwards thunder. He closed his fist over hers, arresting motion. Together they forced the key clockwise, resetting the thread she had unwound. The shadows halted, wavered, and were sucked through cracks in the floorboards, vanishing like smoke. The town stilled. A rooster crowed again, this time at proper dawn. Nora collapsed. Elias gathered her in his arms. Jade-green bruises mottled her elbows. Her hair had turned half silver, as though decades had been scissored from her lifespan. The moment sphere's hand quivered, then settled on a new figure. 1,000,000 seconds. A dozen days. She slept without dreaming for nearly 24 hours. When she woke, Elias sat by her cot, reading the book of Ecclesiastes, a ragged copy once belonging to her mother. He set it down and took her hand. "You absorbed the toll," he murmured. "You spared the town that cut, but condensed your own line?" Tears blurred her vision. "I wanted only to reclaim what was stolen, and you nearly shattered everything left." Nora gazed at the workbench where her father's watch lay dormant. "Break it," she said. Elias shook his head. I told you, it resists destruction. Then hide it, somewhere no one will unearth. I have designed a casket of lead and salt to bury in the peat bog. But as long as memory of it survives, desire will sniff it out. They spoke little for the next week. Nora recovered physically, though white hairs remained. She refused to know whether the watch's reading of her days could stretch by atonement. Instead, she helped Elias close his affairs. He sold the tower bell schematics, returned the carriage chronometers, gifted the music boxes to orphanages. On the 10th night, under a starless bruise of sky, they took a cart into the whispering bog, whose depths ate horses and secrets with equal appetite. The bog belched midges that haloed their lantern. Nora carried the casket. Elias bore a spade. They found a hummock where sphagnum heaved like rotten sponge, carved a pit until black water seeped ankle-high, and set the casket inside. As Elias replaced the soil, Nora whispered a prayer she scarcely remembered from childhood, something about dust returning to dust. Will it hold? She asked after the last clod thumped down. For centuries, perhaps. No clock measures oblivion beyond that. They climbed onto the cart. Hoofs squelched as the mare turned homeward, breath pluming in the chill. Half a mile from the bog, they crossed the cemetery where her father rested. Elias halted the cart. He passed her the antimony key. You must decide, he said. I cannot guard what I create forever. She stared at the key's dark sheen. Even now it seemed to pulse with insinuation. You have 12 days. You can bargain more. Somewhere under that bog, your chance ticks away, patient. She closed her fist until the teeth bit her palm. Then she flung it, end over end, into the open mouth of her father's grave, where the night swallowed it without a glint. Her heart for one moment beat without resistances. Elias released a breath. They drove on, neither speaking until rooftops appeared silvered by moonlight. Inside the town limits they found chaos. Lamps broken, horses milling riderless, doors flung wide. The air smelled of ozone and panic. A child ran past, shrieking for her mother. Elias leapt down, intercepted an apothecary clutching his side. What's happened? The man's pupils were lunar. Everything rewound, he gasped. A minute, no more, but... Oh God, the confusion. Nora's spine iced. But we buried it. I rid us of the key. It no longer needs a physical key, Elias whispered. Your act taught it autonomy. He cursed softly. Every being yearns for continuation. Why would a mechanism fear its own extinction less than we? The latitude of the horror widened. If the moment sphere had tasted self-direction, it could commandeer timelines in minute shivers, preserving its own presence. Neither lead nor salt nor bog could restrain a device whose mainspring now wound itself upon the momentum of universal desire. We must forge a new covenant, Elias said grimly. A creation myth large enough to eclipse it, something the entire world believes more fervently than they fear death. That's impossible. Then we shall attempt the impossible. They set to work at once, not with gears but with words, stories, parables. Elias visited churches and taverns and schools, preaching of the sanctity of unmeasured life, how uncertainty is mercy, how prognostication is a thief in prophetic garb. Nora traveled to neighboring counties, teaching children riddles about sand glasses that cracked when overfilled. They penned pamphlets, dissolved rumors with kindness, invented festivals where people smashed symbolic hourglasses and danced barefoot through clock fragments, celebrating the gift of the next unpromised breath. Summer spread its lennons over the hills. Reports of the death clocks waned, and for a time the world seemed to forget that such a device had ever existed. The bog bubbled in its secrecy, uncaring. On the 13th day since Nora's reversal, she woke at sunrise, certain she would die before dusk. The moment sphere still lay on Elias's shelf, its hand creeping ever nearer to zero. He had offered to bury hers too, but she declined. She wanted to watch, to witness whether belief could outduel machinery. She brewed nettle tea, then sat under the ash tree behind the workshop. Sparrow's song brightened the air, each chirp an unsigned treaty between mortal hearts and time. Elias joined her, carrying 2 slices of honeyed bread. "Ready?" he asked. She smiled. "Not at all." They ate in comfortable silence. The sun inched across sky. Noon arrived, molten, then seeped away. 3 o'clock struck, on the distant tower bell Elias had tuned years ago. She inhaled its bronze resonance. Her pulse drummed slower but steady. Inside, the moment sphere ticked softly, softly, at exactly the final predicted second. One the device itself believed immutable. The hand jittered, then it performed something wholly new. It hesitated, quivered, and made no further motion. Not forward into death, not backward into untime. It simply stopped, arrested between ticks. Nora felt nothing except a warming in her chest, as if a tiny lantern had been lit behind sternum and rib. She rose, walked to the bench and lifted the watch. The hand remained frozen, though the escapement inside still murmured. "Oi!" Time, it seemed, yielded not to prophecy nor revision but to the insistence of living. She closed the lid and took Elias's trembling palm. Out in the lanes of Grindle Hollow, people carried on, unaware. Children chalked hopscotch grids. Lovers argued about nothing. An old widow watered rosebushes that would outlive her. Above them all, the tower bell awaited its next hour, confident it would be rung, though no one could guarantee the next breath. Nora slipped the moment sphere into a drawer already cluttered with abandoned prototypes. She did not lock it. She regarded it with neither fear nor awe, but with a calm akin to pity, as one might feel toward a bird that mistook a window for the sky. Outside, Elias wound the public clock, but only forward always. Forward eclick a modest, merciful promise. Here is the present, and here, as long as hands are willing to turn.